Let's get to the topic of today's video, and it's a really important video because I'm going to tell you how to practice. In today's video, I want to explain to you what the most important strokes are and what you should focus on when practicing. But it's not only that, I'm also going to tell you what the most important strokes are on the ATP Tour and the WTA Tour. So let's get started with the ATP Tour. And no secret, a strong serve and a strong forehand are the most important shots by far when it comes to professional men's tennis. And I already know what you're thinking, Nick, what about Benoit Paire? Benoit Paire is one of the only guys who prefers to hit a backhand, and he does not have a strong forehand. So he is for sure an outlier. And there has been some other guys that prefer the backhand, but the vast majority of professional male players will build their game based on a strong serve and a strong forehand. Now let me explain to you why. It is possible to reach the elite level without having a good backhand. Let's say that you have a backhand that is not even top 500 level. If you had a strong forehand and a strong serve, you can theoretically still have an elite level career. For example, Jack Sock and Steve Johnson. In my opinion, those backhands are nowhere near the top 500, but both of those guys have an incredible serve, an incredible forehand, and they can hide that weakness. So it is possible on the ATP Tour to have a weakness on the backhand side and yet have a successful elite career. See, in the case of Benoit Paire, I actually think that his forehand is not as bad as it looks. It is an awkward looking technique. It is somewhat of an ugly technique. I know what I'm talking about because I have ugly technique as well. But despite the ugliness of it, it is actually quite a good forehand. And it is a topspin forehand. He has a lot of spin as he hits the ball. So as ugly as it looks, it's actually quite an effective shot. And I'll never forget how well the forehand was working for Benoit Paire when he took out Novak Djokovic in Miami. See, another reason why I think that some ATP players can get away with having a weaker backhand is these guys are unbelievable athletes, and many of them will cover the backhand side with their forehand. So they have the ability to hide their backhand by running around almost every single backhand. Steve Johnson and Jack Sock are fantastic at doing so, but even some of the players that have really good backhands will still run around a lot of their backhands to hit forehands, especially guys like Rafael Nadal. So this just goes to show you how important the forehand is in addition to the serve on the ATP Tour. And of course, tennis was different on the ATP Tour back in the day because the volleys were extremely important, but the serve and volley game has gone by the wayside. Yes, players of course still come in, and the volley is an important element when we're talking about the very top of the ATP Tour. But it's absolutely true that serve and volley has died out. Yes, there's a couple of guys like Maxime Cressy and Nick Kyrgios still from time to time will serve and volley a lot, but generally speaking, serve and volley has disappeared, and so has the importance of the volley on the ATP Tour. And it is absolutely true that you don't need to be a great volleyer like the guys in the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. You can get away with having weaknesses at the net if you have a strong baseline game and a strong serve. And we're talking about the WTA Tour. It's all about the baseline game. It's not so much about the volleys, and this might surprise you, but on the WTA Tour, the serve is not that important. You can get to the elite level of the WTA Tour with a relatively slow serve. But it's not only that. There are some players with shoulder issues and limitations with range of motions, and there's cases of pancake serves on the WTA Tour, waiter serves, players with insufficient racket drops, not because they don't know how to serve, but these are usually cases where there's some kind of limitations from an injury. Players such as Madison Brangle do not have a high level serve at all, but because it's the WTA Tour where the game is based on strong baseline play, you can get away with having weaknesses on your serve. And interestingly, on the WTA Tour, what I've been able to observe through my research is that a lot of players actually prefer the backhand over the forehand. So we talked about Benoit Paire. There's a lot of players like that on the WTA that actually have a better backhand than a forehand. And we're talking about both tours. Specialty shots are not so important because you don't really see that much variety in the game anymore. What are specialty shots? where a lot of slices, drop shots, lobs, playing the ball with side spin, maybe like Fabrice Santoro. This is something that you don't see that much, but I will say that the drop shot has had somewhat of a resurgence with some of the newer players, such as Carlos Alcaraz, are using it more and more, and the drop shot is coming back. So I would say that on the ATP Tour, the drop shot is an important specialty shot. When we're talking about the WTA Tour, where the variety in the game has completely disappeared, specialty shots are not important at all. Which means that once a player turns up that has some good specialty shots, such as Barty or Monica Niculescu, a lot of players struggle with that type of opponent because they're just not used to seeing that style of tennis. All right, but enough about the pros. You didn't click on the video for me to tell you about what the pros like and don't like. You clicked on this video to find out how you should practice and what the most important shots are at the recreational level. And here we will have to distinguish between singles and doubles. And let's get started with singles. So if you came to train with me, I would train you exactly like I train my juniors. I would put you in the grind chamber. We would grind the same way when I'm training high level players. What is grinding? Well, it's all about building your fundamentals from the baseline. These are going to be your building blocks. The forehand and the backhand hit from a million different situations in a court is what we would be spending the vast amount of time with. We would spend at least 75% of our time on building baseline fundamentals. The other 20% of our practice, we would focus on the serve and the return of serve. And you're probably thinking, Nick, the serve and the return of serve are the most important parts of tennis. Why don't you practice that more? I want to tell you why. First of all, serving is extremely monotonous, and if you just serve 90% of your lesson, you're going to get bored, and this is going to be a problem if you want to play tennis on a daily basis. You want to be excited when you come to practice, and you want to have the will to go out there and work hard. And if you do something boring every day, it's going to get old really fast. Having said that, when I do serve practice with my players, I try to get the serve practice to be as exciting as possible by setting up targets and maybe taking out a radar gun here and there, or just simply playing out points. Also, the reason why you don't want to serve too much is that what I find is when you serve more than 150 to 200 serves in one session, because you're hitting one serve after the other and the shoulder doesn't get a lot of rest, it becomes quite dangerous if you serve too much. So I think the limit should be not more than 150 to 200 serves depending on your level. And actually just hitting 50 to 75 serves is an adequate serve practice. And that usually encompasses only 20% of your practice time. So let's see, 75% plus 20%, and that's 95%. That only leaves 5% for specialty shots, such as volleys, slices, squash shots, drop shots, lobs. And you're probably thinking, Nick, are you crazy? Aren't those shots important? Like I said, these shots can be important even at the pro level, but these are not going to be your bread and butter shots. So let's just say, for example, we spent 80% of our practice working on the squash shot or the short angle cross court on a topspin lob. This time is wasted because we could have been building fundamentals to the building blocks of your game, which are the forehand, the backhand, and the serve. So for that reason, guys, I'm not saying by any means that specialty shots are not important. I'm not saying that volleys are not important. These are important elements to your game. But what is the most important thing that you need to develop? I'm going to repeat it again. The building blocks of tennis at the recreational level and at the professional level are going to be the same, and that is the serve, the forehand, and the backhand. And that is what you should be spending 95% of your time with if you are a singles player. Now, what about doubles? Well, here it's going to be completely different. I'm going to explain to you why in a second. But first I want to say that the vast majority of recreational players in the United States actually plays doubles and not singles. It is a little bit different in Europe. I find that because of the way the matches are set up, where there's going to be 6 singles and then 3 doubles in most countries, players are guaranteed to play some singles, where here there's doubles only leagues, and therefore there's more doubles players than singles players in the United States. What could be the reason? Well, it's going to be the money, guys. There's going to be a lot more money to be made from doubles players than from singles players. I never forget my first job in the United States. I came from Germany, where we had a limit of 4 players per court, and I started working at this club in Rockford, Illinois. And the first clinic that I was teaching, there was 2 other pros with me, and 25 people showed up to the clinic. So here in the United States, it's all about the numbers. The more players that you can get on a court, the more money you can make, and that's unfortunately what the recreational tennis is all about in the United States. Now you notice that at Intuitive Tennis, I do 100% singles content, and I will feature some doubles drills. I will feature some doubles tactics on my channel down the road. Yes, this will come, but I'm more of a singles coach. Yes, I can coach doubles quite well, and I have done it, especially when I worked in the club system in the United States. I've coached a lot of doubles, a lot of ladies doubles especially, but I'm more of a singles coach. Why? Because I prefer singles. I do think it is the better version of tennis when we compare singles to doubles, because I love the individuality of singles, the fact that you're out there by yourself and you have to figure out a way to win. Hey guys, my camera overheated, so I'm going to continue from the car, and because you don't realize the conditions that I record in here in Florida, it is really brutal. But let's get back to the topic of today's video. We already discussed singles. I already told you why in the United States more people play doubles than singles. So let's get to the topic, which is how you should practice if you're more of a doubles specialist. And I'm going to surprise you. You can practice the same way you do when you're practicing for singles. And here's the reason why I say that. There's a lot of people that believe that you can only play doubles at the net. They believe that you have to come in off your first serve, off your second serve, you have to chip and charge in order to be a good doubles player. And that is simply not true. Take a look at the elite doubles level on the WTA tour. There's a lot of doubles teams that play more from the baseline. And it's not only on the WTA, there's a lot of ATP elite doubles teams that also plays more from the baseline. This is not something that's uncommon even on the ATP tour. So what I'm telling you is that you don't necessarily have to come to the net if you're a double specialist. You can easily play from the baseline and be very successful. So if you train for singles, this can translate into your doubles game as well. And look, I'm not saying by any means that volleying is not important in doubles. Of course, volleying is important in doubles. It's a lot easier to put the ball away at the net than it is from the baseline. But what I'm saying is that if you are someone who struggles at the net, you don't have to be forced to come to the net or spend countless hours trying to improve your volley. You can easily be a good doubles player and stay more at the baseline. And look, if you're someone that's a double specialist that only plays doubles, of course you're going to benefit from practicing differently, because there's going to be scenarios that happen more frequently in doubles than they do in singles. So you definitely have to expose yourself to situations where you're going to be at the net. You're going to probably have to practice overheads a lot more than you would in singles. You definitely have to practice volleys. Now, what I said before, I still stand by that. If you are someone who doesn't like volleying and you don't want to spend all that time improving your volley and maybe neglecting other parts of your game, you could easily play at the baseline. But having said that, it is important, obviously, to volley well, to learn how to poach, to learn how to serve and volley. All these things are very beneficial when it comes to doubles. I'm not saying that playing from the baseline is the best way to play doubles. I'm not saying that at all. The best way to play doubles is like what the Bryan brothers do. In my opinion, they are the best doubles team in the history of tennis. And there were serve and volleyers, chip and chargers, there were closers, there were poachers. That is by far the best way to play doubles. And if you're someone who has a good volley, you should definitely spend more time practicing at the net than you would in singles. I had the pleasure of watching the Bryan brothers practice when I worked in Hawaii. They would often stop there at the hotel I was working at prior to going to the Australian Open, and I was able to watch their practices. And they were doing double specific drills where at least one person was always at the net, or they were both at the net. So the net is incredibly important in doubles. It is the best way to play doubles. However, remember this, if you practice for singles, this can translate well into your doubles game at the same time.